Us now, Speaker Emerita, Democratic Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi of California, and the leader of the Democratic opposition of Belarus, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Of course, Svetlana fled Belarus in 2020 after running against authoritarian leader Alexander Lukashenko in the presidential election, and is widely thought to have won, despite Lukashenko declaring victory amid widespread reports of the election being rigged in his favor. Sound familiar? Svetlana and former Speaker Pelosi are the co-authors of a new op-ed in the Washington Post entitled "NATO is a Bulwark Against Tyranny." Thank you both very much for joining us. Speaker Pelosi, I want to start with you on President Biden first, because over the past 24 hours behind the scenes, there's been a lot of depression among Democrats, the phone lines burning up, concerned about his candidacy and whether or not he can win. And some, even out loud, are shaky at best about President Biden, whether or not he should step out of the race. The headlines, the polling, it all feels very dark. How do you think the president is doing in light of his poor debate performance? Can he do more? And what do you say to Democrats in Congress and even members of the Senate who are beginning to waver in their support?
Good morning, Mika. That's one version of the story. What I do want to say is that yesterday I was honored to be present at the president's speech at NATO. He was absolutely spectacular. He was received over and over again with ovations for what he had to say and the force with which he said it. And then he gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO. I felt very honored by that because, as one who has received it, Jens getting it brought luster to that honor. So it was a beautifully received, energetic presentation by the president. Politics is politics. People have their interest in terms of their own region and the rest. And so we are the Democratic Party, a party that is, shall we say, not lockstep. But this president has been a great president. And I can tell you firsthand, as a person who orchestrated many of the pieces of legislation that the president takes great pride in, and he should, because he was there at the table, chapter and verse, very conversant, with a vision, a purpose, with the knowledge of the issues, with values underlining it all, and again, always asking the question, what does this mean to working families in our country? So any thought that he wasn't able to deliver on all of those is, I can just say, just didn't happen.
So, Madam Speaker, you just went through the president's record, but let me ask you about the current moment. Does he have your support to be the head of the Democratic ticket?
As long as the president had it's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. I think overwhelming support of the caucus. It's not for me to say. I'm not the head of the caucus anymore, but he's beloved. He is respected, and people want him to make that decision, not me.
He has said he has made the decision. He has said firmly this week he is going to run. Do you want him to run?
I want him to do whatever he decides to do, and that's the way it is. Whatever he decides, we go with. I think it's really important, and I would hope everyone would join in, to let him deal with this NATO conference. This is a very big deal. Over 30 heads of state are here. He is the host of it, and that means not just hosting, it means orchestrating the discussion and setting the agenda, and he's doing so magnificently. And I've said to everyone, let's just hold off. Whatever you're thinking, either tell somebody privately, but you don't have to put that out on the table until we see how we go this week. But I'm very proud of the president. And I'm very proud to be here with Svetlana. I've been on this show any number of times, but I have to say it is such an honor to be with her, a champion of democracy, a courageous leader in a very dangerous situation. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Svetlana.
Well, let's turn to you now. Thank you for being here. Tell us, what is here at the NATO summit? What is your overall message?
What we are waiting from NATO countries now, as people who are fighting against dictatorship, against atrocities in our country, against imperial ambitions of Russia, we need unity and decisiveness. Because the task of dictators is to split democratic world and to divide, not pursue them, not to provide assistance to those nations who are fighting to dictatorship. So we need unity and we need decisiveness, because very often I see that undecisiveness perceived by dictators as weakness, and they cross red line after red line, like thinking when will be the answer from the powerful democratic world. And we need leadership of the USA. We need countries, nations who are fighting. We don't have enough strength to fight against dictators, and we need leaders.
So on that point, Madam Speaker, there is, on American leadership, there is real concern among some of the heads of state here and military leaders about what would happen to NATO if Donald Trump were to be elected again. What is your level of anxiety about that?
Well, I think there's reason to be concerned for several reasons. First of all, when he was president, sad to say, when he was president, he said he cast doubt as to whether we would honor our mutual defense commitment that is in NATO. And now, and then you hear him say, if countries haven't paid their 2%, then Putin can have at them. I mean, this is insane. I think we should be spending a lot more time paying attention to what this prospect is for our own national security. Joe Biden has been a part of expanding NATO, strengthening NATO, and in a really remarkable way, in a way that commands respect for our country for being respectful of other views and timing. And so it's the difference is, well, the contrast is so great. But in terms of our national security, which is our responsibility to keep people safe, that means globally and locally and in every way, Donald Trump is a danger to our country, and people should understand that. And when he goes off and cozies up to Putin, his buddy, for whatever reason, when I left that table with that pointing to him, I was saying, with you, Mr. President, all roads lead to Putin. And it still is true. What's the connection? I don't know. But whatever is, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to the American people and global security.
I'd like to ask Svetlana about that. Donald Trump has said he wants to lead like a dictator or be a dictator for a day or whatever. He has cozied up, as Speaker Emerita Pelosi has said, to Vladimir Putin multiple times. Apparently even in contact with him now is what he's bragging about. He has promised retribution to people who he feels has crossed him. So I'm wondering if you could explain what that would look like in the United States of America. What's the warning that you have for the American people of a presidency like that? And also, do you fear America's steadfast commitment to NATO and freedom will waver if Trump is elected?
So first of all, I want to appeal to the Americans that it's such a huge luxury, have possibility to honestly choose a future president. Because today is 30 years when Lukashenko is governing Belarus. 30 years we don't have such feeling that we don't know who will be the next president of the country. So you have to cherish this. But of course, now it's such a huge turbulence in the world, and you have to think twice before choosing your future leader, because the world has to be based on the values that your country is based on. It's rule of law, it's democracy, it's justice. This is what we are lacking in our countries. And we need democratic leaders, we need democratic countries that are based on these principles, not business-oriented policy, but values-oriented policy. And of course, we perceive NATO not only as like military alliance, but also as political alliance. And we, of course, need to promote this alliance to Belarusians for whom for many, many years, it was declared that NATO is a threat to our countries. And we need to explain Belarusians and that it's alliance of democratic world, of democratic countries, whose main aim is peace and security in the whole world.
Nika, if I may, knowing of your commitment to recognizing the role of women, courageous women in the world, when Svetlana ran for president in Belarus, hundreds of thousands of people were in the street, largely women in the street, supporting her candidacy. Now she, of course, is under arrest by the Lukashenko government. And today we found out that Yulia, the wife of Alexei Navalny,
yes,
is under arrest by the by the Russians. And that perhaps you'd speak to that not being unusual in your situation. I'll say this, I'm on the board of the Munich Security Conference, and when Svetlana comes, the response to her, the initiation of praise for her is so great. She is a global celebrity in terms of democracy and women in leadership, and very courageous in terms of the dangerous nature of Lukashenko.
Yeah, dictators are learning from each other very fast. I was sentenced to 15 years of jail in absentia. Now, Yulia Navalny, and believe me, dictators will not stop. Dictators cannot be appeased. Dictators cannot be re-educated. They can be only fought. And again, we need strong leaders to fight dictators globally.
And I might add that Putin has been vicious against women in Ukraine. Kidnapping, rape in front of their children or in front of their parents, kidnapping of their children. It is using rape as a weapon of war to demoralize people in terms of the war effort. And Putin is a war criminal in that regard, and it all goes back to him. The Russian troops, I said, oh, they've turned into animals. Look what they're doing to the women. And people say to me, make no mistake, Russian soldiers do what they are ordered to do. So this is the role of women in all of this is very important. Women in security, and as I say, Svetlana is a global heroine in that regard.
Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi and leader of the Democratic opposition of Belarus, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya. And I want to thank you so much for your leadership and for speaking out, especially under the conditions that you are in, and giving a warning of what fascism looks like, what dictatorships look like, what happens when democracy falls apart.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.